Hey everyone, I'm Stephanie, and I believe that the right book at the right time can change lives, and that all readers should read children's literature, especially adults. So, that's what we do here on the KidLit Love podcast. We celebrate all things children's literature: picture books, early readers, middle grade, and young adult novels for readers of all ages. In each episode, we'll talk with children's literature authors and discuss their books, their hopes, their dreams for readers, their writing process, and much, much more. Whether you're an adult reading to their inner child or connecting the young readers in your life with fantastic books, you've come to the right place. So grab a notebook to build your TBR, and let's get to today's episode of KidLit Love. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the KidLit Love podcast. I'm Stephanie Affinito, your KidLit loving host, inviting you back to another bookish conversation with a children's literature author. Today, I'm talking with DK Ryland. She's an author and illustrator who loves creating books that make kids laugh. Her debut picture book was Giraffe is Too Tall for This Book, and she was here back on episode 67 to talk about Have You Seen My Acorn?, a delightful book that had readers hunting and laughing. She's here today to talk about her newest release. Giraffe's book is missing a story, the sequel to Giraffe is Too Tall for This Book, and it invites 6 friendly animals to face the blank page together. It's a fun book for young readers, but it's also a good old writing lesson for us all, and I can't wait to discuss it. So let's get right to the episode. Welcome back to KidLit Love, DK Ryland. So glad you're here.
Thank you. I am happy to be back.
I love return conversations. They just make me happy. It's like you come on the screen, I'm like, I know her. Instant bookish friends. So it has been a little while since you've been on. You were here back in episode 67, and I think we've just about doubled those episodes. So even though you're familiar to us, I'd love to refresh listeners' memories who are here for that episode, or introduce you for the first time to listeners who are newer to the podcast, and start with you and have you tell us a bit about yourself and your work and your journey to children's literature.
Sure. Yeah. So I am DK Ryland. I am an author and illustrator and of picture books and hopefully someday graphic novels. That's on the agenda at some point, hopefully. Um, but for now, picture books. And I like making funny picture books that make you laugh and think, and usually they feature animals, and I basically write what I wish I would have had as a kid and or the things that I enjoyed as a kid. And I came to Kidlit from kind of an unusual roundabout way. I think that I was coaching and I was teaching kids, and I just realized how much I love kids. And then when I had kids of my own, I started reading picture books really for the first time in a very long time. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is the most amazing art form. I love it so much. It's so fun. I couldn't get enough picture books. I was reading them to my kids, but really I was reading them because I love them.
I know that feeling.
Selfishly, yeah. And, yeah, so I didn't think I could do it at that point because I didn't have the skills, but over time, I built up, my artist ability until eventually I took a picture book writing class and picture book illustrating class, and I thought, "Oh, I think this is really what I wanna do." So, little by little, step by step, years after years, eventually, I ended up here.
So a lot of times authors will come on and they will say exactly what you said, which is usually kids are a really great kick in the pants for us to return to our love of picture books. And so they lean into the writing. You, however, went gangbusters, right? And leaned into the writing and the illustration, which I remember being in awe of that back in our first episode. And I still am, because you just tackled both together.
Yeah, thank you. It's interesting, yes, because that is typically people think, oh, the writing first. And I thought the writing was way more intimidating. I thought, oh gosh, like to come up with a story, to tell it in a way that's, succinct and eloquent and meaningful and deep. It's just like that's terrifyingly difficult. And so I started with the drawing, and I am more visual, and I was a film major in college. Like it just, the visual makes more sense to me. And I still approach writing that way. Usually I sketch out an entire dummy before there's even words, and then I add the words. So it's reversed just because of how my brain works, I guess.
I
Yeah.
can see why you're leaning into graphic novels, hopefully as a next step.
Yes, my critique partners are like, you need to do a graphic novel because I want to do everything in speech bubbles. They're like, why are you not doing graphic novels? Yeah.
Oh, I can't wait for that. You mentioned as you were talking about your story that you were writing the books that you would have enjoyed as a kid. And my favorite book, and I can't remember if we talked about this. I know I mentioned it on the podcast before, but my favorite book, the one book that I remember as being the book that made me the kind of reader I am today, was The Monster at the End of This Book by John
Oh,
Stone.
fun. Yeah.
Because Grover spoke to me.
Mm.
Grover knew that I was there. Grover was asking me to turn the page, to not turn the page. I was so involved in the story. And I just remember thinking, oh, this is what reading is supposed to be. And I approached every book as if it should be this magical, wonderful reading experience. And your books just take me right back to being a
Oh.
kid and sitting there and thinking, they know I'm here. Knows that I'm here. It's such an interactive experience with the reader to tilt the book and change the orientation of the book. Both of them. I absolutely love that element, and I'm just so happy to know that even if the monster at the end of this book isn't as popular as it was when I was a kid, kids are going to have yours so that they can get that same like goosebumpy experience that I had as a kid. And so I just want to thank you for writing a book that involves the reader. Like you.
Well, thank you. That is high praise. That's a big compliment to be compared to the monster at the end of this book. So yeah, that's really cool. Thank you.
You are welcome. So let's give an overview for the readers. We are talking about Giraffe's book is missing a story, but I feel like we can't talk about that book, or I don't want to talk about that book without at least mentioning your first one, Giraffe is Too Tall, for this book. So can you give us an overview of that first book and the premise behind it?
Sure. Yeah. So Giraffe is Too Tall for this book is about six animal friends who find themselves in a book, and Giraffe doesn't fit because the book is too short. And so the six animal friends have to work together to figure out a way for Giraffe to fit and for them to all be together.
Yeah. And that's where the reader comes to the rescue, which is the beautiful way the reader is involved. And so
Yeah.
Giraffe's book is missing a story is the sequel to that book, although certainly could be read as a standalone, of course, but it is a continuation of that. So how did book two come to be? And give us a little backstory or a little summary for listeners who haven't seen this book yet either.
Sure. Yeah. So I was lucky enough to be asked to make a sequel. Giraffe is Too Tall did quite well, which is awesome. It was a Target Book Club of the Month, and it was in Scholastic and Literati. And so it did really, really well. And they're like, we'd like to see more of that. And do you have any ideas? And I'm like, of course I do. And I did not. So So I had to think, I have these parameters now where we have six animal friends, they're in a book, it has to be interactive, and what can we do with that? And I thought, okay, so if there are six animal friends in a book, they're probably going to be bored. They need something to do. And that was my jumping off point for creating this story.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And so, this is the part where I always think, what do you say and what don't we say in order to keep some of the elements, of surprise there? But I don't think it's a spoiler if you give them a little idea of how they go about writing the story, because I love the interaction and the teamwork between
sure.
everyone here. So I'd love for you to at least tease the way they decide to put a story in the book because as a kid, it was one of my favorite things to do with friends.
Yeah, yes, exactly. That's exactly where it came from. Because when we are in a car ride or we're putting the kids to bed, or, we have moments of boredom or time together where there's nothing else to do, we play this game where someone starts with a sentence of a story, and then the next person goes, and the next person goes, and they can only add one sentence at a time until we have this
Yeah.
usually very wacky off the wall story, and it's so much fun, and there's so much personality in it because like my son's personality is, how can I ruin this story for everyone, which is cheetah in the story. And then my daughter's is, how do we make sure that this is a real story with a plot and a rising action and a climax and a falling action? And that's kind of Snake in the story. So it was really fun to kind of put their personalities and explore the animals' personalities more. But really, it was taking a game that we do all the time as a family and making it interactive uh, and into like a full a story within a story, really.
Hmm.
Mhm.
So does that mean that you're elephant or like, are you a
Oh my gosh, I have not self-diagnosed myself on this one. I have to think about that. Who am I? Yeah, good question.
Oh, I love that. Do your kids see themselves in the book? Do they know? Can
I
they
don't
pick themselves out
know.
of the animal lineup?
I don't they probably could if I asked them. I'm gonna ask them after this and see
Yeah.
if they know. But yeah, I mean, they're very aware of their of their personality traits for sure.
I would totally write my own kids into the books and not tell them and see if they could figure it out.
Yeah.
So you've got that really fun story element that, when you take one sentence at a time, has just that fun, unpredictable, what are they going to say next kind of atmosphere around it. But as I mentioned, you also have this wonderful involvement of the reader. And so right away early on in the story, which is why I don't think it's a spoiler, I will say it. Um, Elephant asks, "Where do we start?" And the response is, "Stories have words. Everyone, on the count of three, shout the first word that comes to your mind. You too, reader. One, two, three." And then there's this beautiful blank page to just shout that word into. And as a former educator of little ones, I could just envision the shouting and envision the writing and the word creation and generating that's going to come out of this. So I feel like it's a fun story that the reader's involved in. The reader is actually controlling the story by the shifting and the movement of the pages, which is wonderful. But I feel like it's a good lesson for all of us on just having a voice and starting a story ourselves and putting something down. And I'd love to know if that was something you were thinking of or a hope that you have of the book to get kids, or I should say readers, anybody writing as well.
Yeah, yeah, that's definitely one of the underlying themes, I guess, is that what to do with the blank page, what to do, how to just jump into creating anything really, and not being afraid of that. But I definitely was thinking about teachers being able to use this as a story in a narrative storytelling lesson or creativity lesson or anything like that, where it's just they can do it with the animals. It's not scary to do that. It's like a fun environment, and then they can do it themselves. So I felt like it would be a really fun jumping off point for teachers to be able to use as well.
And there's little writerly lessons, I would say, inside, at one point it says, anything can happen in a story. Like it doesn't have to make sense. Anything can happen. It is your story, which is just this permission slip for imagination as well.
Yeah. There's a couple of things about like the climactic moment and things like that. And so I tried to add little things in that showed a little bit of story structure without being like, this is how you tell a story.
Right. Right. So that it's always great when the reader uncovers that, as you go, but doing so with so much fun in the story, it was just a delightful experience I'm in my 40s, and it was just as delightful to be taken into that. Part of the delight, DK, are the pictures, the illustrations. Oh, they're just so they're bright and they're inviting, and you can see the shading of them. I'd love for you to put your illustrator hat on and just
Okay.
tell us about the process of bringing this fun interaction to life.
Yeah. So yeah, these particular books are really interesting design challenges
Yeah.
because they have to fit a certain way and the speech bubbles have to work a certain way. And now we have this storytelling happening. So there's the left side page has the animals and they're telling the story, and then the right side page is the actual story happening. And then one by one, the animals enter into the story themselves. And so it kind of delineates the storytelling and the actual story happening. And so visually, I think it makes it make sense. And the one of the biggest story problems in the whole thing is how to get Giraffe to fit into the book, because that is the story problem of the first book, and it actually is a problem. It's really hard to write that right around that without a character actually fitting. And so that was one of the reasons I went the story route that I went with it, because we could get Giraffe in the book and happy. And that's one of my favorite parts of the book, is that he actually fits in the book.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think I forgot the question now.
Oh, it
But
was
hopefully
you
that
answered.
answered.
I think you answered it. It was just
Okay.
about the creation process in
Yeah.
terms of the illustrations and the gosh, just the colorful beauty of the illustrations. I do love that you mentioned the left side versus the right side, because that's also kind of physically marked, with the left is this bright white background and the characters are kind of jumping off the page. Yet on the right, that story element, as you said, has that bluish or that actual background of what would be in the story. And so I feel like it takes something that could be really conceptual for kids, animals creating a story in the story, but this
Mhm.
just makes it all make so much perfect sense that it's like it's a craft lesson in itself for kids to, I would say even older kids, to take a look at what you did here and really play around with that in their own writing.
Ah, thank you.
And I didn't mention the end pages. I love the end pages. We have cheese in the front and peanuts in the back.
Me too. And pages are my favorite. And you don't always get to do them because it just depends on the page count and what you're allowed to do. But these are 40-page books. So I get to do end pages on them, and I love it so much. It's so
Yeah.
fun.
They're my favorite too. They're my favorite. Now, when you think of book one and now you think of book two, and maybe we'll get to talk about what may be coming next. What is your hope for this book? Whether it's your hope for the book or your hope for readers and their experience as this book number two goes out in the world.
Yeah, I hope that that Giraffe and Friends become um a group of characters that just are enhance someone's childhood, that they're just like, I love these characters, I remember these characters, this is so fun. I had the series or the couple of books or whatever it was, and I just loved going on adventures with them, and hopefully it's just this positive experience, and if I can provide that to some kids, that's the coolest thing.
Yeah. Well, I already called it at the start of the episode that these books are going to do what the monster at the end of this book did to me. And I think you're going to hook so many kids into reading and writing
Oh,
because of
thank
that.
you.
Not to
That
mention just a really fun experience.
Thank you. Yeah, that's totally a dream. That's awesome.
Yeah. Do we get to know anything if there's another one coming?
Yeah,
Are you
yeah. So
sweet?
it's been announced. So book three is coming out in fall of 2026. So not that far away, really, in publishing time. But yeah, so and that book is called tentatively Don't Open This Book, Giraffe and Friends Are Sleeping. And the premise is that when the reader opens the book, they wake up the animals and they have to get them back to sleep. and it explores those different personalities, and it kind of puts the reader in the driver's seat of being the one in charge of bedtime and giving them kind of that experience, which I think is cool because bedtime for kids is like that's kind of
Yes.
like not in their control, right? It's something they
Yeah.
have to do, and so it gives a lot of tools for bedtime, but it also gives them some power.
Yeah. I love that. They are going to love that for sure. Now you have another one though, right? Can you mention and name
Yeah.
drop as many books? You've been
Yeah.
busy.
Well, my next like actual book is coming out in fall of this year. It's called The Dangerous Alphabet Book, but that one's with Astra. And I built a really nice relationship with them, with my editor. And they bought the another book called Splish. And that book comes out in fall of 2026 as well. So, and finally have a book that's only, one word for the title instead of, seven or eight, which is all too long.
Oh, well, I'm looking forward especially to that book 3, but they all sound wonderful, and I'm so glad that you are putting more of your work out there in the world for us to find. Where can we find you online so that listeners can keep in touch with you and just be in the know when these books come out?
Yeah. The best place to find me is on my website because it has links to anything else. But my website is dkryland.com. And Instagram would be the social media that I use the most, which is just my handle is DK Ryland.
Okay. I will make sure to put links to those in the show notes and of course links to the books that we talked about today so that we can all read them and interact with them and see what happens when the reader gets a little bit of control in your books.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
You. Oh, thank you. Thank you for coming back. Thank you for sharing your books with us. And listeners, thank you for listening to another episode. And I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for listening to today's episode of the KidLit Love podcast. You'll find links to all of the books, resources, and ideas mentioned in the show notes and at alitlife.com. You'll also find KidLit Love on Substack. That's where you'll find posts for each episode, monthly KidLit roundups, and an invitation to join my summer book club and go deeper into the world of children's literature. And if you loved this podcast and want more, you might like to listen to my other podcast called Get Literate. It's a podcast that explores all things books and reading, notebooks and writing to build a life you love. One more thing. If you love what you listened to today, please take a moment to rate and review the podcast or take a screenshot of the episode and text it to a friend. This helps the podcast grow and builds our bookish community of Kid Lit Love. Thanks for listening.